It's 9 o'clock. I know it's going to be a very busy day, so if we could go ahead and get started. Um, with y'all's indulgence, I'm going to jump around and take up the double referred bills first, so we can definitely get those out of here this morning onto the next committee. And if you could jump down to House Bill 536, I'm going to call that one up. But before we explain that bill, I want to talk about 536, 849, and 1301. Those are really workforce development bills, but apparently the House really wanted 1301 to come out of the Senate, so they stuck that bill into 536 and to 849. And so what we did, we drafted a strike all to remove 1301 basically out of 536 and 849, and all that's remaining is workforce development language, and that's why Chairman Parker's here. And so if I could recognize Chairman Parker to explain House Bill 536 for us, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for that introduction. It takes a little bit of the explanation away from me, but what 536 and the strike all you have in front of you does now is it removes the entire language of 536 and inserts Senate Bill 2124, which we passed unanimously on the Senate floor. What Senate Bill 2124 did and what now House Bill 536 will do deals with the Department of Unemployment Security. If you recall from the floor, what we talked about was there were some employers who were continuing to pay wages to employees during the pandemic, and due to some provisions we had, unemployment insurance still had to be paid for those persons in addition to them receiving the COVID pay. So it's cleanup to prevent that from happening again. And again, Senate Bill 2124 also clarified some of the provisions and the duties of the executive director and some other clarity regarding SUTA dumping. Again, it's exact same language of a previous bill we passed. We want to keep this alive in two forms, in my bill that's over on the House side and in the House form here, but I'd be glad to answer any questions if there are any.
Does anybody have any questions for Chairman Parker? Do I have a motion, Senator Blunt? Okay, you've heard the motion. Title sufficient to do pass strike all. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. That bill will be reported. If we could skip down to House Bill 849, I'll recognize Chairman Parker again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, similar situation. We are removing all of the education language from this bill. And what this bill goes back to is a bill we passed last year concerning the SWIB board. We set up a new SWIB board last year, and the appointment process regarding appointments made by the Speaker of the House became an issue. And a couple of those appointments have yet to be made to the board. So what I've done is I've tried to work with the governor's office, with the lieutenant governor's office, and with Patrick, and hoping to work with the House on this too, to come up with some language that will allow those two existing spots to be filled. What we did last year, if you recall, is we set those spots to be a selection of 3 names provided by the Speaker of the House, and then 2 of those would be selected and appointed by the governor to fill those spots. What this new language would do today is it would change that to being 2 business affiliates who one would be appointed by a lieutenant governor, one would be appointed by the governor after consultation with the Speaker of the House. So the list that had drawn some concerns with the Elaine case from many years ago, I think will be alleviated, and hopefully and still have some language there that consults and brings a speaker into the fold without creating kind of a, hopefully a court battle over the issue. But again, it's just in 2 small parts there, and believe hopefully this will fix that issue. Be glad to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for Chairman Parker? Okay. I see Senator Bryan in the back.
So the appointment right now, as we passed last year, the Speaker of the House named 3 people to fill 2 spots. The governor was to select 2 of those people and then appoint those 2 people. But due to the provisions of the Elaine case, the governor has not filled those spots. And so what we're changing that to be is it will still be 2 spots, but instead of those both being appointed by the governor, one would be appointed by the lieutenant governor, one would be appointed by the governor after consultation with the Speaker of the House. So that it takes the list away, but it encourages the dialogue and discussion with the Speaker of the House. And there's some, desire to bring that input in there, but not necessarily make it a statutory requirement as we did in last year's language.
Under the existing law, how are the appointments made?
For these 2 appointments which have not been filled, the Speaker of the House forms a list of 3 people, and he has selected those 3 people. Then that list of 3 goes to the governor. The governor then selects 2 of the 3 and then appoints those 2 to fill this position.
And so this is going to be changing to say Lieutenant Governor consults with the Speaker and then sends the list to the governor.
This will change it to say that the lieutenant governor consults with the Speaker and picks 1, and that the governor consults with the Speaker and picks the other. Again, Mr. Chairman, what we've, and I know this is a difficult explain, but we're trying to fill the positions, keep all the parties who have interest in this, somewhat happy with the process. The board, and I sit on the board as a non-voting member right now, and it's been a struggle, with just 5 members on the board to get some of the things done at the executive committee level. So, and if there's any input for some better language, I would love to hear it.
Well, let me recognize Senator Hobson. I believe has some questions for you, Chairman Parker.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Parker. Senator Bryan largely addressed the issues that I'm concerned about, and when we talk about consultation with the Speaker, do we know what that entails? Is that defined in any way?
No, I wanted to leave it just, I don't think it requires the lieutenant governor or governor to go by the recommendation of the Speaker. I think after consultation, there could be an impasse and an appointment would be made regardless of what that came from. But just as a sidebar on this, I've had some great talks with the governor's office. Their intent is actually to appoint the people from the list of 3 that were provided by the Speaker. They just are concerned with the vehicle and the method of doing that. And so again, this language is trying to recognize that fact. Again, we're working to get the situation fixed, and it's difficult language, but and I struggled with that word consultation, to be honest with you, because I couldn't really think what would be the best way to make this happen. But be glad to talk to you more if you have more questions.
I'm disappointed myself last year for not. I should have known better than last year because essentially what we did was have the Speaker, by virtue of the number set up, was going to have somebody that he specifically appointed, and it's nothing against the Speaker, but it's just the separation of powers between the executive branch, i.e. the governor, and the legislative branch. Would you be amenable to just removing the consultation with the Speaker? I mean, I don't know how that's going to work. If the governor calls and the Speaker won't take his call, or vice versa, and then there's the question of whether there was consultation, would it be easier just to put it's the governor's appointment like we do most everything else?
I tell you, I would, in lieu of that, I would prefer to maybe put a reverse repealer in it and just kind of keep the discussion alive on it. Because I haven't had that talk, I mean, there's the intent here is to try to have all parties somewhat happy with the language, and I feel like if it comes out of the committee without that in there, it might create some ripple effects. That my concern is, we're having this discussion today on this, but as the bill passes, will be how the bill is perceived, and our discussion today may not be reflective of the intent that I have bringing it out of here.
Okay, I'm just going to state that I would probably be likely to offer an amendment on the floor, because I just think we're setting ourselves up for more problems later on if we don't do it. But I can
understand.
live with the reverse repealer for now, but I do think it just creates unnecessary confusion in the future.
And I'll try to continue the discussions, you know, and, you know, we'll hopefully have something worked out by the time we bring it up on the floor.
Thank you, Senator Parker. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Hobson, do you want to make that amendment now for reverse repealer, or what?
I thought it had the reverse repealer in it already.
Does it?
It
Okay.
may
If-
have. I don't have your final
if-
copy from the,
Oh, mine did not.
okay.
If not, I'll make the motion at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Senator Norwood?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Does it have a time limit for the appointments to be made?
It does not.
Okay, are there any reason that you think that we may do this in a timely manner like we didn't do it this time?
Yeah, we had some other language this year to try to make those appointments, you know, not just this one, but other ones. Unfortunately, that language has not moved forward, you know, but, you know, the intent here is to try to fix this one problem and to also, you know, address that other one, you know, going forward. I do have concerns that certain appointments have not been made too, though.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr.
Any other questions? Senator Bryan?
I think I understood you to say these appointments were changed by a bill we passed last year. Is that right?
Well, these appointments were set up, if you remember, we revamped the entire SWIB board, took the membership down, we set up the Office of Workforce Development, and we set up an executive committee that had an entirely new makeup, including 3 appointments by the governor, 2 appointments by the lieutenant governor, and these 2 appointments that we're speaking of today on the executive committee. And so these appointments have never been made for the bill that we made, for the bill that we originally passed last year.
So this is a committee that didn't exist until last year's legislation.
It existed, but it existed in an entirely different form.
Were there appointments made to this board in this different form?
There were some appointments. The original committee had nearly 50 members. We pared it down to less than 30, and we set the people who would be on the executive committee to be the ones that I've described to you before. The people on the executive committee served there by what their title was. You know, for example, you might have somebody who was there because they were the commissioner of a certain agency.
In the previous arrangement, did the governor have any appointments?
He did, and he still has. He has about 20 of the appointments.
In the previous arrangement, did the lieutenant governor have any appointments?
He did.
In the previous arrangement, did the speaker have any appointments?
Before the bill last year, no, sir.
Any further questions? The strike all does not have a reverse repealer, so I believe we have Senator Hobson's motion to add a reverse repealer. Is that correct, Senator Hobson? Okay, you've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Opposed? The amendment passes. Back on the bill, do we have a motion? Okay, you've heard the motion. Title sufficient, do pass, strike all. All in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. That will be sent to Workforce Development. If we go to the bottom, we'll call up House Bill 1301. That does have some elements of education, so I'm going to recognize Senator Johnson to explain the bill. Strike all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What this does is just provides that the statewide testing shall include an optional career readiness assessment like ACT work keys to be administered in the 9th, 10th, or 11th grade. If the student chooses to take it, this 11th graders taking the ACT or being administered the ACT will remain in effect, and this would just be an optional additional test that they could take. And that's an explanation of the bill.
Okay, and it's my understanding that the MEC is supporting of this language, that this is something they really want to see to help with dual enrollment and children or students with career technical education.
That's right. Several businesses as well as other states do this now, and it's a good resource for them to find and hire
Okay.
employees out of high school.
And we're including this language, even though the State Board of Education last week adopted some policy on work keys that's out for comment now. what wasn't covered by the state board is now covered by the strike all in 1301. Is that correct?
That's correct. It opens the door for them to do that, and
Okay, okay, thank you. Any questions? Senator Jordan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Career and technical education, is going to be improved, or it's going to be just the same? Or are you going to improve technical education?
we're not making any changes to.
Not going to make any changes at all?
This is just allowing for students that are in the 9th, 10th, or 11th grade to take an optional alternate route or career readiness assessment.
Okay. So technical education is available at some of the community colleges, free, isn't it?
Everything that is available now will not change because of this bill.
So this bill, it just changes it, but it doesn't improve it.
I guess all this does
Education.
is create an opportunity for students to take
Okay,
a
just
career
create an
readiness
opportunity for
assessment.
11th
Yes, sir.
graders to take it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
I
Chairman.
think, Senator Jordan, this is just provides an alternative for students that we know aren't going to college, that can take an alternative path, and this just provides a system to grade them and rate them, and it allows a different opportunity for these students that we know are not going to go into college and so forth.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, appreciate it.
Senator Boyd, did you have any questions? Okay, I'll pass. Any further questions? Chairman Parker, did you have anything to add on 1301, or is it just all education? Okay. Okay. Senator Johnson, you have a motion?
Title sufficient, do pass, strike all.
Okay, you've heard the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. That one will be reported to Workforce Development as well. Let's go back up to House Bill 1047. That is double referred to appropriations. So I'm going to recognize Chairman Johnson to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 1047 deals with National Board Certified School Nurses, National Board Certified School Speech Pathologist and Audiologist, as well as National Board Certified Athletic Trainers. Currently, we allow for the $6,000 per year supplement for the nurses and the speech pathologist and audiologist. Those are capped, nurses at 35 and speech pathologist at 20. And there are approximately 10 nurses on the waiting list to get that, and approximately 18 speech pathologists on the waiting list. What we're doing with this bill is removing the cap so that all of those teachers can get, that are on the waiting list, can get the National Board Certified $6,000 per year supplement. And then it also adds in athletic trainers and puts a cap, I believe, of 20 on those. Right now, there's 11 athletic trainers in the state that would qualify for this. And this does not require a fiscal note. Based on the information that I received, currently, we do a certain amount of appropriation for National Board certification to make sure that we have enough to cover it for the year. They're turning back around $1 million per year now, and this would fall within that money that they're currently not using. That's an explanation of the bill.
And because of that lapse of that 1.5 million, this is not going to cost anything new at this point.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman Johnson. Any questions for Senator Johnson? If there are none, you have a motion, Senator Johnson?
Title sufficient, do pass, strike all.
Okay. You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. That will be reported to Workforce Development. Thank you, Chairman Parker, for assisting us this morning. Okay. I'm going to call up next House Bill 1123, the Early Learning Collaborative Act of 2013. This is a strike-all. This is putting in the language, the Senate bill that we passed, Senate Bill 2664 that Senator Wiggins handled, that we passed. There are no other changes to it other than just putting the Senate language into this bill. If there are any questions on that, I'll defer to Senator Wiggins at this time. Strike all. Okay, you've heard the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. That will be reported to appropriations. Call up House Bill 1179, the William Winter and Jack Reed Teacher Loan Repayment Program. That is a strike-all. That is similar to the ELCs. It's a Senate bill. we just put our language in it, Senator Blunt's bill into it, Senate Bill 2305. Because we're on the deadline day, we just did this to ensure that we have vehicles alive for most of these. So it's a Senate bill. Are there any questions on this? If there are, I'll refer them to Senator Blunt. If there are none, Senator Blunt, do you have a motion? Okay, you heard the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. That will be reported to appropriations. Okay. We can go back up to the top now. I think that's all the double referred. We'll call up House Bill 135. That is the Mississippi Critical Teacher Shortage Act. This is basically the same bill that we passed, Senate Bill 2527. However, our version did not include the West Tallahatchie School District, the pilot program that allowed for rental housing to be built that's never been used. The House version does. That's in Section 6. The House really wanted it. It wasn't something I felt we needed to fight over, and so I just decided we should just take up their bill and worry about it another day. It has the 3-year repeal on it, so they'll come back up in 2024. Does anybody have any questions on that? If there are none, do I have a motion, Senator Blunt?
Title sufficient to pass.
Okay. You've heard the motion. Title sufficient do pass. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Okay, we'll go down to House Bill 487, County and Public Libraries repeal certain provisions. This is just a one-page bill that's been requested by the Department of Education, School Boards Association, Superintendents, Administrators, the Supervisors, and Library Commission. It just repeals, as you can read it, one paragraph, those sections of the code that really have not been used in, I don't know how long, Pete, 20 years or so or more, roughly, about that. So all these entities have just asked that we just repeal these code sections because they're really not necessary at this point in time. I'll yield for any questions if there are any. If there are none, do I have a motion? Okay, you've heard the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Okay. Call up House Bill 504, Commission on School Accreditation, Clarify Membership. This just basically revises the membership of the Commission on School Accreditation, which is established by the State Board of Education. Is tasked with reviewing the standards of accreditation and making recommendations to the Board of Education. There are 15 members of the commission, all appointed by the State Board, as I said. Currently, 3 of those members must be from the old 5 congressional districts. This just says that has to be appointed 3 from each of the 4 congressional districts plus 3 from the state at large. And then at the end, on line 44, it just says the expenses for the commission shall be paid out of the department's central office budget versus any other education funds. I'll yield for questions. I see Senator Bryan has a question. If you,
Mr. Chairman, I see this as a reference to the 4 congressional districts.
yes.
I don't have to think about all this right now, but I'm saying this so that other people can think about it.
Senator Bryan, I can barely hear you. Is there a way you could come to a microphone or come forward, please?
I'm sorry, does this work?
That's fine. Thank you, Senator Bryan.
It's so rare to have people who, A, actually want to hear me or pretend that they do. B, ask me to speak louder. I really don't want to get into all of this right now, but I observe that there's a reference to the 4 congressional districts. And somebody somewhere needs to think about how you deal with the boundaries of the congressional districts changing. It might be well to pass a general statute that says that these references mean the districts at the time of appointment or at the time the term begins, and what happens if there is a change in congressional districts and suddenly the membership of the committee doesn't work anymore. And I don't care what we do about that, but I do think somebody somewhere needs to get all that down in writing so that whoever's making these appointments knows that and it doesn't create difficulties down the road. But my preference, Mr. Chairman, would be not to think about that right this minute, but to think about it as we go through the process.
Absolutely, Chairman Bryan, and we can do that if it gets to that point. This is going to conference, and I'm glad to have any opinions you have. Any further questions? Senator Wiggins?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I have an amendment at to the committee substitute at the proper time, and
Okay, I think now it's proper time, Senator Wiggins.
and I'll state my amendment, Mr. Chairman, and then explain it. So my amendment is that we're not changing the number of board members, but that on lines starting at 18 and 19, that be changed to 6 members who are not actively engaged in the education profession, and then at line 15, thereabouts, that we add in 1 superintendent of a school district with an exceptional school. And if I may explain my amendment. This is the the Commission on School Accreditation, and I'm not sure how many people know, but apparently there was a number of issues for those districts that have exceptional students. And for those that don't know, exceptional students, what I'm talking about are students who are very severely handicapped. And what my understanding has happened is that under the accreditation, that allowances were not made for these schools, and it affected the accreditation rating. And apparently, and if you know anything about these exceptional students, they will never, ever perform like normal students, because that's the conditions that they have. And so there is, and I don't mind saying, like in Jackson County, all 5 or 4 school districts feed into one exceptional school. So they take on for every school district in the county. And and my understanding is the accreditation came out, and then there was a discussion and some accommodations had to be made in the accreditation formula to do that. And so with my amendment would be to have a board member from one of those districts that has these exceptional students on there, so that they could at least, 1, be represented, and 2, have a voice when it comes down to the accreditation. And so that's my amendment.
Thank you, Senator Wiggins. I think it's a very good amendment. I think that
Thank you, Mr.
would
Chairman.
help out. So is there any questions for Senator Wiggins on his amendment? Senator Hobson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What are the exceptional school districts? How many are there in the state?
I don't
know the exact number.
I personally don't know. I know that not everyone has one, but there are those that do have them.
Pete, I think you said there's a couple, but not very many? Okay.
I'm not, that's why I'm asking the question. I'm not at all familiar with the exceptional school districts. Are they defined by the department, or how are they set up? Just so we've got an understanding of what this is.
There we go. So it's my understanding, Chairman Hobson, that several years ago there were a couple of schools formed in this exceptional school. I don't know if they were given statutory authority to do so or how that came about, but they've been serving kids with special needs for all these years. And I think one of the issues that Senator Wiggins is talking about is several years ago when the federal law changed for us to be able to grade and rate schools. These schools also had to receive a grade, and so they did not receive a good grade when the grades came out. These schools are set up so that they meet each individual kid's IEP, their individual education plan. And so I don't know how they formed or why they formed. We know we have them. And I know the one on the coast, and I think there may be one other one across the state, if I remember.
Okay, here's my point, Mr. Chairman, I think there would be some other school districts. I don't have a problem at all with the intent of the amendment, but I think there are other school districts that have exceptional children within their school districts that might love to be a part of this and might want to be the representative that we're adding to this board if we pass this amendment. And I'm just concerned that we're going to confine this to 2 or 3 places when I know folks in my district might be interested, or my superintendent or other people that are in my area might want to be, they're educating special needs students also, and they may want to be a part of this. Is there a way that we can not tailor this so tightly that we allow, I guess essentially it would be all school districts, but put in some other language that would open it up to a lot of people in the state that would be eligible to serve in this position?
Senator Wiggins?
Yeah, I think Senator Hobson, or Chairman Hobson, what you're doing is, that's the right thing to do, and I just use exceptional school districts because of the specific ones, but I think you're correct that my understanding is there are districts that may not have an exceptional school, but have these specific kind of areas, and I'm even thinking of maybe the school for the blind, the school for the deaf, that those people are represented on the board, and that was the intent of my amendment. So yes, I would agree with what you're saying, so long as we make sure that we include the formal exceptional schools that Pete Smith is talking about that do exist in this state.
Mr. Chair, if I may continue to ask
Absolutely.
questions and comments too, and also think of places like DuBard and the Communications Center at USM, and I think of Magnolia Speech School and a number of other places that may have qualified people to help in this area. Would there be a way, Senator Wiggins, that we could word it so that it's a superintendent or a principal at a school or a school district that has expertise in dealing with exceptional children or special needs children? I'm with you on, and I think it's a good idea to add them, but I don't want to narrow it down to where there's just going to be 2 or 3 districts that have the availability to do this, when there are a lot of other people around the state that have training and expertise in dealing with exceptional students.
No, I think that's fine. I think we have to, well, let me say this, and maybe Pete can answer this better, is that, remember, this board is limited to the accreditation. So only the accreditation. I don't know if the school for the deaf, school for the blind fall into accreditation, and so there may not be a need for that. As Pete Smith said, back when the federal law got changed, these exceptional schools then got grades, and thus that affected the accreditation. And so that's what we're trying to accomplish. So I didn't want to go beyond what this board is about.
Yeah, but I don't want to belabor this, and I know Senator Boyd may have some expertise in this too, but I also know that there are a lot of, I've heard this from my superintendents saying they have concerns about the way that special needs children are, the accreditation as it affects special needs children. So I think it's a broader topic than just saying exceptional school districts. I think I stand to be corrected on that. And
How about any district with exceptional children or expertise? Yes, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yes,
maybe-
I'm willing to, I think we can craft an amendment to that effect.
After other questions are asked, maybe we can come up with an amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Boyd?
We might want to consider actually putting like giving someone who is a special education administrator and not just a superintendent. And that would open the pool to what you're talking about, Senator Wiggins, and exactly to what you're talking about. And in reference to what you're speaking of, Senator Hobson, I've repeatedly heard special education directors refer to problems with how we are doing, looking at test scores and things like that, which goes back to exactly, they're the same issues coming at it. It impacts, obviously, these special schools and a great deal more, but the same issues are coming into play. So I might make a suggestion that we narrow this down a little bit more and actually ask for an administrator that is in special education serving those, because that could come from all over the state or it could come from these special school districts. But that would be my suggestion on that.
Senator Wiggins, haven't heard the comments of the committee. Do you want to restate your amendment for the committee to consider, or how would you like to
Yes.
proceed?
My amendment would be to remain the same with taking 6 members and then adding one person who will represent the exceptional school districts and the special needs community in these districts. And I'm happy, so that's the intent of my amendment, and taking into consideration this. And if the amendment passes, I will work with the attorney, or we will work with the attorney to get the proper language to address these things. I want to be, as my amendment started, and as Pete Smith said, there are a couple or 3 or 4 places that are exceptional school districts, and I don't want them to be, overlooked, and I don't think we will. So if that's my amendment.
Okay. Thank you, Senator Wiggins. Sam, did you get that amendment down correctly? Okay. All right. Thank you.
The wording would be, instead of leaving it to exceptional school districts, that we have somebody with expertise in special needs and exceptional children to be a member of the board.
Okay. Thank you, Senator Wiggins. Any questions, any further question, any further debate on the amendment? Leave it to the will of the committee. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. That amendment has passed. Back on the bill, any further questions on the strike all? If there are none, do I have a motion? Okay, you've heard the motion. Title sufficient, do pass, strike all. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay. Call up the next bill is House Bill 633, which is the computer science bill. This is a strike all as well. We've inserted Senator DeLango's bill, Senate Bill 2678, as the language for the strike all. That's all we did. It was insert Senator Delano's questions. If there are any questions, I'll ask those to be asked now, and I'll defer to Senator Delano to answer any questions. Senator McMahon.
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the proper time. I don't have any questions on the bill.
Okay. Do we have any questions? Okay. We're back to you, Senator McMahon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee members, I wanted to take this opportunity to share that back in 2012 that the legislature passed some abstinence-based education, and it's come to my attention that this year it's repealing this year. And I wanted to reinsert this code section back into this bill as an amendment. And basically all it does is it's the exact same bill we already passed in 2012. It's a bipartisan bill that teaches abstinence-based and abstinence-plus based education, and it extends the repeal date from this year to 2024. That's my amendment.
Okay, you've heard Senator McMahon's.
Mr. Chairman, which bill are we on?
House Bill 633, computer science curriculum. Do we have any questions?
If I'll be happy to take any questions,
What
but
is
this is the
for the
current-
attorney's sake, what is the bill, or what is the language you're looking, and where are you looking to insert that into 633, Senator McMahon?
House Bill 633 deals with statewide curriculum. I believe the amendment is germane because this also deals with statewide curriculum, which is abstinence-based education. And it's the current law, just the repeal date's repealing this year.
So is it your intent to add a new section 8, or, and what
Yes.
is the language specifically you want for the attorney?
I have the current statute.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Senator McMahon? Any comments?
Can someone tell me just a little bit about this program?
Sorry, Senator Boyd, I can't hear you up front.
Can someone tell me a little bit about this program, what it is? I don't have any information. This is dramatically different than this bill, and I just need more information, and I don't really have it.
Sure,
So-
I can read the bill if you like, but it's a short, it's the current law. Public school systems are required to teach abstinence-based education. And basically what it does is it teaches about the social, psychological, and health gains to be realized from abstinence-based from abstaining from sexual activity in grade school and high school, and the negative psychological and physical effects that it can have by not abstaining. The young people, this is, like I said, this is already taught in your public schools. Boys are separated from girls anytime there's a conversation about actual sex. But it does also go on to teach about unwanted sexual advances and how to handle those, and it's irresponsible to have sexual advances and things of that nature. And this is, and Senator Boyd, this is the current law. It just repeals this year.
Senator Delano, I'm sorry, Senator Boyd, but Senator Delano, this is your computer science bill. Do you have any comments on the amendment or questions for Senator McMahon?
Mr. Chairman, I don't think that this amendment will, I think this amendment will make this bill a little more difficult to go through. This is such a, what is the germane part of this bill, or the original part of the bill, is something that has been worked on for several years to make sure that we get this through. And this is the, this is an opportunity for us to advance computer science in the state of Mississippi, as well as allowing for students all across the state to be exposed to a great education program. I feel like that this amendment may cloud the issue a little bit more, and I'm a little apprehensive about it, but I'll leave it to the will of the committee on how to move forward with it.
Thank you, Senator Delano. Senator Boyd, I think you had some questions.
This is a huge piece of legislation that we're about to pop in here. I don't have data on how efficacious it's been. I want to know more about this. This is something that I think deserves a lot of time. This computer science bill is something that I have been agreeing with since last year with Senator Delano doing this. I am reluctant as well because I feel like this is an incredibly important issue that we're about to throw into a bill and not really study it again. And I feel like it's something that is worthy and very important for us to study. And so I'm reluctant to do it because I feel like it's very important. We need to focus on this, but not put it in this computer science bill because it deserves its own attention. So I'm kind of in the same inclination, but
I appreciate, may I speak, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, you're recognized.
I want every committee member to understand this is the current law. This is what we're currently doing in the state of Mississippi. This passed the legislature in 2012, and it's been in effect since 2012. All we're doing is extending the repeal date, which it repeals this year. So this is the vehicle that we have available to insert this amendment. And it isn't. So if this repeals, I want to be sure that everyone here understands that abstinence education in your public high schools could no longer be taught. And I want to be sure that everyone understands that. So we've done a good job, and the public schools have done a really good job with abstinence-based education. We've seen the pregnancy numbers decline since 2012, and this is not an amendment creating any new statute, any new code section. I want to be sure I'm explaining this well. This already exists. We're just extending the repeal date. That's all we're doing, Senator Boyd.
Senator Delano, I think you have a question.
I don't know if this question would be to Senator McMahon or to the chair, but every year we usually get a list of bills that have a repeal date in them, or that's something that's affected by this legislative session. Is there a reason why this bill did not have a standalone vehicle, or this amendment have a standalone bill, and why it wasn't taken up by this body at a prior date?
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to answer?
For Senator McMahon?
For either one, I mean,
There was a vehicle in the House. House did not pass it. There was one in the Senate that did not come forward as well.
It's okay. We did not,
So what will happen is if there is no statute, basically school districts will be able to provide abstinence education based on what their district allows and what they want to pursue. It could be what's in current law or something different, but they have the option to do that.
So then, Mr. Chairman, a question to you. So what you're saying is that you are aware of the repeal and, or this particular law having a sunset or a repeal date on it, and it was the discretion of the chair through discussion with MDE that maybe this bill needed to, or that this particular code section needed to sunset because it was being handled appropriately throughout the school districts?
That was the discussions we had with several bodies and entities, and as you can see, it did not come forward.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Is there any further? Senator Wiggins.
Thank you. And this may be to the chair or to Senator McMahon. So, Senator McMahon, if I understand, if this bill, if your amendment isn't there, that it's left up to the districts, but that, and under that, that also means if this expires, that districts could also not teach abstinence, meaning they could teach something else, and that abstinence wouldn't be on the scale. Is that right?
they could teach something else, or they could teach nothing. And because of the will of this body, when this was passed in 2012, we've seen pregnancy numbers decline in this state.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think this has been successful. The intent was to teach abstinence-based education, and I don't think that there's a parent or a grandparent on this committee or in this building that wants their grade school children being sexually active in grade school or in high school. That was the intent of the original legislation. I think it's been successful by a lot of different measures, and this is in no way changing anything on the current law, what they're currently doing, except extending the repeal date, and I hope you can support it.
But if we don't do it, then there's nothing there, or the law that's in place goes away, correct?
If we don't do it, then it will revert back to the law of 2011, which said every school system could do it if they wanted to, and many of them were not doing anything.
Okay, and do you remember when Governor Bryant, in about that time, talked about reducing teenage pregnancy in the state of Mississippi, when he was championing that and working with individuals across the state to reduce teenage pregnancy?
I do, Senator Wiggins. I was not in the legislature at that time, but by a lot of different measures, this has been successful, and this was a bipartisan bill in 2012.
Is it your opinion that without the amendment that we would backslide and not have these things in place to help address teenage pregnancy?
In my opinion, if this measure is not on the books, that it will be left to individual school systems to decide for themselves if they want to teach any abstinence-based or any sex education at all, and I do think it'll be a step backwards when we've seen so many so many of the numbers have moved in a direction where we wanted them to move when this bill was passed in 2012.
And when the law was passed, in the current law, we saw pregnancies go down.
We did.
Okay, thank you.
We have any questions or any further discussion on the amendment? We ready to vote? Okay. Okay. On Senator McMahon's amendment, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. The ayes have it. Okay. We're back on. Okay. We have a call for a division. Okay. Can we get Sam and Christie? All right. All right. If you're in favor of the amendment, raise your hand, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Good. If you're opposed to the amendment, raise your hand, please. 1, 2, 3. Okay. The ayes have it. That amendment has passed. Okay. We're back on the bill. Any further discussion? Any further questions? Do we have a motion, Senator Delano?
Motion be title sufficient, do pass, strike all.
Okay, you've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. That will be reported. Okay, the last bill we have is House Bill 754, which is the dyslexia education bill. This is the same bill that we passed earlier, Senator Boyd's bill, Senate Bill 2307. There's no other changes to it other than we just put Senator Boyd's bill in there. Talks about dyslexia and this, that, and the other. Do you have any questions? If so, I'll defer to Senator Boyd. If there are none, do we have a motion, Senator Boyd? Okay. You've heard the motion. Title sufficient, do pass, strike all. All in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. That is everything on the agenda this morning. Thank you for your participation, and I have a motion for rise and report. So moved.